a whole lot of songs that feature the cowbell.
I gotta have more cowbell.
I'd be doing myself a disservice and every member of this band if I didn't perform the hell out of this.
Guess what? I got a fever. And the only prescription is more cowbell.
Thank you, Bruce. If I just leave and maybe I'll come back later, we can lay down the cowbell.
Oh, baby. Gee, wait. Why don't you lay down that cowbell right now? With us. Together.
Do you mean that, Eric?
Speaks for all of us.
Thank you.
Babies, before we're done here, y'all be wearing gold-plated diapers. What does that mean? Never question. 1, 2, 3, 4.
You want to just go jump out at you?
Right. So yeah, you know, some people don't know what that was, even including my brother. He forgot about that. I'm like, how could you forget about that? Oh my gosh.
All right,
So I thought it was a good thing.
And then you,
Oh yeah, go for it.
All right. Welcome. Wow. Those people. Great. Welcome to EBDUG 2.3, third, fourth. We started 0 because we're geeks. Fourth meeting of 2014, the second season. Normally, there's a few things I'll do ahead of time, but we've got some momentum for the features thing. So, if you're ready, do you want to just slide into it, and then we'll kind of break it open after that?
Sure. Actually, Luke had a good idea. My name is Amy Degnan, and oh yeah, sorry. No, now I'm in the presenter mode, so I'll just roll how I always done it. So I'm Amy Degnan. And we're not fearing the features. Here's our little Drupal Reaper here. But before we get into this, I've done a lot of stuff and work, and I'm a co-founder of a company called Click 42 with Kristen Pohl, those who know her from the Santa Cruz area. But Luke wanted to hand out these cards, but this is a good idea. If you guys, who's worked with features before in the past? Who hates them? Who thinks they suck? Who gets a headache? Because the cowbell is like in the face.
Download download stock profiles. That's the way to go.
I'll talk about that actually, because I had a big discussion with Tim Plunkett at Stanford Drupal Camp about that. So, and that's a good thing that we'll talk about that. But take a couple moments, and if you have some questions about features that you want to ask. Write them down, and if this doesn't answer them, we'll surface it later. So, or you can draw pictures on it. I'm a doodler, so I'll draw pictures. Okay, so that's me. I've done Drupal and CMS stuff, so let's talk about, and this is Kristen and I. We do Drupal sites, and it's fun. We contribute to the community, and I can't talk because it's been a long, hot day. So, speaking of features, magic. So Drupal has a nice feature. You can create a feature using features. This is a good sentence. Does everybody understand this sentence?
One that says there's a new package called benefits.
It's apps. Exactly. Are you scared yet? Because that's like the funny joke, because I've said that sentence a few times, and I just keep laughing. I'm like, oh my gosh. Okay, so Drupal has a nice development and deployment feature that you can create a feature on your website using the features module. That's what that sentence means within Drupal context, and not the module. So does that clarify things a little bit? Okay. We're going to talk about the features module today, and features and we're going to talk about features version 2.0 because it's cooler. It's way cooler than 1.0. Because we're in season 2.0 of the EBDUG. So we're going to talk about what is a feature, why you use them, what is all this features jargon, because there's all this words about features, and how do you do it right? And why is it important to be organized? And then when should you fear the features? Because you should. It's balance. So today features is our cowbell. So it keeps in rhythm. It's very there if you're using it. And when it messes up, oh gosh, it's wrong. But no, really. What it does, it exports Drupal configurations like content type settings and field settings and other types of settings like variables from the database into code in the structure of a module. Okay, and so that's important to know because it kind of carries through things. So the intended usage when they made features a long time ago was like, oh, cool, I'm going to bundle a whole bunch of reusable things like for a feature, like a blog feature, reuse on other sites, because why do I want to make it more than once? So I can have my blog feature having blah, blah, blah on all these different sites. Awesome. So I can have my 42 awesome blog. And a feature could have a content type, some views, maybe some permissions in there, a block, that type of thing. So now the adapted usage, because everybody was like, I am so tired of taking my site from development through test to production and manually re-entering all these settings in that database or porting databases back and forth. It's got a big deal is the adapted usage, which is actually a more frequent usage, is you bundle the database configurations for code deployment in a multi-stage publication process for a single website. Does anybody use Pantheon at all? Right? So the dev, test, prod, you can make your configuration in dev and safely take it out to prod. Safely. Mm-hmm. That's safely. So, there's some other cool usages of features. Features can be installed with a distribution with special considerations. So like Open Atrium and all sorts of other Drupal distillations. Yeah, distributions. That's a distribution and installation, because I was going to say install profiles. You can use them in install profiles, but you have to be really careful with stuff. So you have to bundle them in a way that is truly reusable and won't have conflicts with different things. Has anybody used Panoply or one of these other big distributions like Open Publish or Public? They use things called apps. Apps is a module. Apps are really just features with more cowbell. So it means it's features with a nice wrapper for deployment, and so people can just turn it on, just like an app on your phone. It's supposed to be that easy. But setting them up and supporting them over time with an app server and everything, that's got a lot of overhead. And if you're Panoply, you're going to support that infrastructure to put apps out, or if you're going to make your own big distribution. And then there's a nice little link from level 10 in there. So features has a bad reputation. Too much work? You guys feel like that? Is it hard to use? Because it's not clear, it's messy, painful, evil. Okay? Yeah. So,
you have unreliable in there?
I'll get there to this end of the slide, but you can, here's poorly made features hurts everyone. Hence the unreliability, and so sometimes you can, oops, I forgot to put a variable I needed from my deployment. So unreliable is on two fronts, is whoops, you messed up making the feature, or you didn't test it. And the other one is, oops, the C tools didn't export everything correctly into my module. So there's two big reasons. But there's other ones. There's like circular and multiple dependencies. So who has installed views? Right, everybody? And views requires C tools, right? So that's a module dependency. So with features, you can get all crazy and have like circular dependencies. So you can have them like intertwine like this because you're choosing the feature configuration. And that's not good sometimes. Because if you turn off one and you think it's benign, it'll shut off everything on your site. And you're like, ah! So it's fun, so you have to take some care with this. Yeah, here's the non-exportable, the untested. Yeah, even I'll get flippant sometimes, like, oh, it'll be okay. Whoops, no, it's not okay. So our goal is like love the features, right? Through understanding and more cowbell. So it's basically use them more often, but in a much more deliberate way, in a controlled way, and understand how they exist, so you can, live with them. So features is a member of your band, and it does use C tools, and you should actually add in diff. So diff module, when you use with features, will give you a visual diff of what the feature changes come up. Then extending features. Actually, I should have been turned around. I'm just noticing my English is wrong. There's features extra, which adds some other cool types of things. It gives you more, and I'll show you in a bit, things to add in your features. StrongArm lets you export things and I have a PDF up on our site so you guys can download it. StrongArm exports things like a Drupal variable, like the site name or something like that. And then there's features override, and it should be use with caution, break glass in case of fire. So features override is an interesting module where you've got this maybe nice bundled feature, and you only want to do one tiniest little bit of override, but you don't want to mess up the feature. So you can make another feature that uses a feature override that overrides one setting in the other feature to tweak it. And that's scary. I've used them in the past, and it's okay. But it
overrides StrongArm, which overrides Drupal, which overrides PHP.
Oh yeah, that point, well, there's the layer, right? So which one wins? It's if you hard code it in settings PHP. It's what it wins.
Module overrides the whole thing.
Right. So so that's a good point, though. There's understanding this dependency tree. This is just code. It is just a module. But it does interact with the layer of the database and also the layer of configuration in Drupal. Then there's more stuff. So there's who wants to export content at any point and move it around. It's a really shitty thing to do. It's hard to do. So I would not say use features to do that. Okay. The reason why is you can turn on a module, a feature that has some content, and every time you turn it off and on, it keeps on rebuilding the new contents. You'll have help page, and it's help page 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 if you turn it on or off. So it's okay, kind of like a sample thing, but when you kind of play around with it, it's kind of crazy. But you can use integration with the unique identifier module, so it can bind those things together. But I never have really been amazingly happy. There's some other content deployment and feed methods that you can use. So you can either use feeds or this deploy module. So. Okay, so behind the music. It is really just a module. So you have an info file. You have a module file. And what's interesting, the module file, it's not doing anything by default. But this features file has all the logic of hey, this feature has stuff from StrongArm, and which is the exportable type. And there's other. I don't know why there's 2 different formats, but there are. That's probably just by the module person creating it. But you can have specific module exportables, so you can have field group and you can have views. All make these little baby files that are includes by this big features. So what's really cool in the features version 2 is you can actually extend and put custom code in that module. So you don't have to, because module overhead is huge. If you have lots and lots of modules on your site gets slow. Because it's oh. So you can put custom stuff in that module file. Awesome. So you don't have to repackage a whole module. You just have to be very careful when you do recreations that it doesn't overwrite that. So, so a quick example. We keep our modules in, you can either keep it in sites all module. This is not clear. I'm going to skip. Okay, here, just really quickly. This is me. It's sitting in the modules directory. I cat the info file, so you can see a very simple thing. It has the name and the package, dependencies, circular dependencies, and then this is what the module file looks like. But this is the interesting one. Is this okay? Yeah, my blog has some block settings. It has some field instances. It has strong arm, so it's a Drupal variable settings, and some views. So, and this one is our contact form, so we have conditional fields, we have some field instances, and field groups, and some variable settings there. So does that kind of give you a visualization of how these things come up? Oh, here, this one's cool because it has like a field. There should be a field group one in here.
So you're demonstrating how different features can create different files based on what
Whatever
kind of
you,
things they're doing.
yeah, whatever things you add to the feature. So if the feature is supposed to have 7 views or whatever, you'll have views files and things like that.
You're using version 7. Was Drupal 6 features much different, or?
Ooh, even Drupal 7's features version 1 is much different.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. There was a huge, and I'll get into a little bit about why that was different and why it made my life better really quickly. It was in a pinch. I was like, yes, you guys updated. Yeah, 6.0 was challenging, and what happened actually with 7 is that more and more modules actually are creating support for it to be featureable. And that's really like a lot of the contrib modules caught up to be able to be exported.
So that'll be carried through, hopefully.
Actually, that's an interesting thing. I'm going to table that question, but we'll do that at the end because I'm working on a bunch of 8 stuff right now. So. Okay, so let's, like, features it's arbitrary. You can make it how you want. So who's put everything in a feature before? Oh, one big ass feature. Oh yeah. Oh, come on, right on. Thanks, John. Was it fun?
Putting it in was great.
How about living with that big bloated feature?
And then I wrote stock profile.
Exactly. Okay. And I'll get into the difference between that because this would be fun to talk about anyway. But basically, when we, like, Kristen and I actually interviewed a bunch of people, like big shops and how they're doing their features, architectures, and things. And so we've kind of surfaced how people do them. There's a couple of different families. But the role-based thing is you want to isolate and identify the features, like the configurations, that get turned on first and turned off last. So you want to identify your dependencies, right? Of configs, of modules, of anything. And there's 2 leading approaches. So you can bundle things by type or purpose, like, and I'll get there in a second, or by site functionality. But they're both the same, and I was so happy to use a Venn diagram. I love diagrams. So they all have this concept of put base, shared, global settings, and everybody calls it in base features, right? It was actually very interesting. People call them base. I'm like, oh, yay, we are just naturally all doing kind of the same thing. Okay, so does anybody understand view bases and view instances, or field bases and field instances? You do, you know.
I know.
Okay, so you know how you make a new field in Drupal? Okay, so, and you know how you can reuse that field on lots of different content types? Well, there's 2 parts of that field. There's the little tiny part of the field that makes the database structure. That's that bottom section of that field config form called like global settings. It says, don't change this, it'll change it on everything. That's the field base. And the field instance is like the label, the description, is it required in this instance or not? That's the field instance. And what happens is you only make the field base once. Okay, and then when you reshare it on lots of different content types, or maybe across different features, you use just the instance. So features version 2, like, and this was huge for performance. So we had a site that had like 200 or more fields, right? And it was so slow, and it was too many tokens because, like, it's a butterfly effect. So what happens is you this was released right before, and I was like, oh, sweet mother of awesome. So really very quickly, I had to make the architecture where I split the bases out from the instances and improve performance drastically. We could do lots more field reuse. We did this also with the features on an install profile. Challenging, but it's functional. But it works really well. But things like view modes, you know how you have the teaser and full content? Yeah. If you make custom ones like display suite, you stick those in a base area because lots of content types can use them. So why stick them in a feature and then you might turn that off and then it goes away for everybody. So So the architecture, you can do like all views in one big feature. So it could be like my views feature. And then you can put all panels in it, or display settings. And then you can put all content types. And the other one is like, I'm going to do it by blog, by product, PPC landing page, that type of thing. So by site feature, site functionality. So the use cases for something like this is really good for a small dev team. The reason why is because if I'm, working on, and if the team members have a role per developer. So if I'm the person that's a site builder, and John's the guy who's doing the theming or making views, then that totally works because I can do my site building and just put my feature changes in the content types, and he can go in and make the views and everything. Everything's cool. But the minute I have to do both a content type of view and extend the view mode all at the same time, then and so does he, who gets to update the feature first in Git? So there's no parallel development there. And this is good for single use. Like, I can't bundle a blog if half of the stuff is in views and some of it's in this. I can't just go, hey, here's my blog. Right? So I have to surgically remove it if I wanted to reuse that work. So when we have large projects with lots of features on the site and a large dev team, we were challenged with that very, very early. So this is where, hey, we're going to isolate this by feature, like a blog, a product, landing pages, and each person's going to own that whole thing, right? And so we can independently develop in our parallel processes and not screw with each other's features. And that's great because it reduces Git merge, Git conflicts and everything. Because doing like a Git merge with features is really bad. It's almost impossible. And so the benefits here is you know where the things go. You can manage your dependencies very clearly because views can't work if there's no content, that type of thing. And panels can't be seen if there's no content. And you can kind of reduce merge conflicts if you have a project structure to do that. And then the other ones is the benefits. You isolate site features, lots of parallel development and reduced management. And then which one do you choose? You know what, they're both okay. Just choose what's easy for your site and how big your dev team is.
What happens on the large project teams when you break it off this way, but then there's still going to be overlap in terms of things that are being used across there? For example, view A can certainly be used by different use cases over here. So there's an implication then this feature over here that person's packaging that up is going to do that for both.
Why would so if it just depends how you architect your stuff. So we have, say, a blog has 3 views within its one view. Right? So you have the blog, you have the list page, and you have like a spotlight articles, and then you have like related articles. And those can all be different variants of that one view. You can put them all in here. Now people can consume it in other ones, or maybe this is where you have block settings that come into play. Block settings are always weird in features. Sometimes we'd have to go in just configure it, because we can get almost everything, but not everything. But that's where you put some things in context, and that context is what lays over your other stuff.
Well, I guess I'm getting this. Like again, if you had something like products or categories, some common sort of definitions, some tables that are going to be used across your system by different groups here. So
like entity references and things like that.
Okay. Common, then who comes to decide or say, okay, I'm going to take that one view?
It all comes down to the field base. That first entity reference field base that you make. This becomes your anchor. And it's not super perfect, but at least it helps you go further. And this becomes pretty much like, this is like, yeah, I'm very features protective about the field basis feature. He's laughing. He's like, because if you mess that up, you mess all sorts of things up. So, but this is why we isolate those types of super architectural, like high risk fields into somewhere that we know is high risk. Okay, so what is your name feature? We really want to make sure that you have a unique naming a name for your features. You can create a feature tag. I'll show that to you in a second, to group features in the UI. And you really should prefix it with a code, like we use H42, just so we know very quickly, like if we accidentally generated it somewhere else, that in the contrib or the base modules, it's not like hidden with all the other contrib names. It's very like, oh, I can see it, it's mine, you know, or like a client's project name. And you should always have a clear descriptor of the contents. So, and also where you live. So this is where you can live in sites modules custom. You can live in sites all modules features, or where your architect's convention comes from. We've used both. I'm moving one of our current sites that a bunch of features got created on to this, just because then custom is really for a super 100% custom modules, and features is very clear.
So even though I've done it many times, the sites modules features always kind of weirds me out because you can install the features module in there, and sometimes when you're moving things around, are there any conflicts, any worries about that it's the name of the feature?
Sure, of course. Why the hell would somebody name that? But yes, and then sometimes we've been playing around with it a lot just to see what fits. So we have custom features, underneath it, and you know what? I talked to folks at UC Berkeley and Davis and everything, and big places are kind of using this convention, so I kind of stuck with that. It takes it one less directory path up that you don't have to type in. So really quickly, when you put like a tag on a feature when you're creating one, if you just leave the default, it sticks it in the features bucket, and all your custom stuff is in with all the other stuff you get from Contrib, and it's like, ah. So what you do is you tag it, and then it'll nicely put it in your own sorted window. And the reason why you do that is because you really want to see when something is like out of whack. And we'll talk about what that means. And then you can, and here's you have a description, and you can see, oh, hey, everybody is, everybody requires hook 42 base. And then this, you guys can take a look at it, but if you build it out, this is a possible feature structure. So you have base site. Actually I wrote this, and then like a week later I changed it to base utility. So, whatever, it makes sense. And then base field, this is all the field bases. Front end is all your view modes. What's really, really important is if you're going to use features and do religiously in your production, is you want to make sure you have a development feature that has all the stuff like devel and all the UIs and font your face UIs and stuff, because that stuff's really heavy in production. And if you have a client, you do not want them to go and change your fields around because field UI is turned on. So you really want to make sure to control your environment, that you have a base dev feature that shuts off all of these functional things. It is very good. And then you automate that shut off with a script when you deploy it, and then you don't have to forget. So then there's other things. We have like functional types of things, because we try not to get too much bloat in our features, but we try not to get too many. Yeah, exactly. There's this balance. This is not a science. This is like whoa. And we have things like base SEO, base security, if we have to do lots of different security stuff on a site, that type of thing. So it does go there.
I like how you said try.
Huh?
You try not to get too much code.
Yeah, no, seriously. Yeah, it's
We don't always succeed.
Focus. Well, yeah, and I'll tell you how we failed to skip yesterday. So I'm okay with that, because everybody is learning, and that's when I'll talk about doing the install profiles. So there's features. What are you saying when we talk about features? So we talked about dependencies. So feature can be disabled, just like a module. A feature can be overridden. And who's seen that feature screen that says like overridden, needs review? You're like, oh, what does that mean? So overridden, the code on disk in your module is different from the stuff in the database. A little bit. And then needs review is like, you know what? It's kind of a lot different. You really should look at this and make sure that if you want to apply this change, you want to. And that is the only big difference between the two, I think, is the amount and complexity of changes. So that sound right to you? Okay. So that, and this is like, and the lingo is sometimes different in the UI than the command line. So in the UI, you can create a feature, or when you have to go and update it, you can recreate it. So that's that recreate button. And that's to make changes to an existing feature. You can generate the feature. So in this view, or in the features window, you choose all the stuff you want in it, and it's not real until you generate, or basically pressing the button to write it to disk. And then this other thing, there's this little tab called Review Overrides. That's where you install the diff module, because then you can see the nice view of changes. So like, here's my Recreate tab, and here's if I was just going to view the feature, and here's my Reviews Overrides. And oh my gosh, who did that on production? Me. Why did you do that on production? Because I can. But you can see that I had to backport it, whatever. But this is where we needed to, you can see, oh, the changes in the, on the database says, oh, my block should not be on the front page. And it's at a different weight, you know, than something else, and than what's on disk. So sometimes, you know what, sometimes it's like, ooh, it's gobbledygook. But then sometimes it's like, yeah, oh, I know, I totally changed where that's supposed to live, or I totally changed the label to something, and it's okay. So it's just a quick confirmation. And this is just a screenshot of that like creation form of the features. So this is your feature name. This is the machine readable name. It magically puts it in for you, and you can change it the first time, but when you're recreating it, it doesn't let you change it. Here's the nice description. Always put a description in so you don't forget. And then here's the package. So you know what? I just saw, and they renamed. No, is it called package still? Dude, okay, it's.
I'm sorry, you're reorganizing 3 projects for me right now.
I'm sorry. I reorganize my own projects, like when I talk it through with people. But this is the package where you can type in your own group to have a vertical tab for it. And what happens is it doesn't exist until you type it in the first time. So you type in your group, then it puts a tag in the back end, and you'll be able to type it in, and it'll autofill. Okay, so have you guys seen these things here? Okay. These are components, right? So they're just different, they're components that are sorted by what type they are. Or like components are different things you can put in a feature. And they really split it out nicely, so you can go, oh, I know I totally changed the display suite field settings on this one field, and you can go, oh, I need to make sure I added that, or I added a view mode instance of, you know, this content type for my blog. So you can see very quickly where your changes are. It'll highlight too where the changes are. Does anybody have any questions about this, or kind of how to deal with the interface in a way that's sane?
Is there?
Oh, go ahead.
Whenever I'm at that screen, I spend a lot of time like opening up little tabs to try to figure out what's actually in there. Is there any quicker way to sort of see like what's in a feature?
Know your machine name. So here, machine name in Drupal is awesome. So if you made a blog called blog, type in blog in the search, and it'll filter things. And if you keep a very good naming convention for things, if you're making a view mode, like if you're changing the teaser to the blog, it will have in here teaser. It'll say blog, teaser, view mode, whatever. So if you just put in the string blog or your content type name, it should get most of this stuff. Or like a module, like XML sitemap, it should, your strong arm variable should come up, so that'll help filter it. Thanks. I totally will pay you for that. I normally wait for people to ask for that. Okay, so know your lingo. Drush, who uses Drush? Okay, cool. Okay, so when you revert a feature, so it doesn't make totally a lot of sense when I first heard it, But it just means you want to apply all these settings that are in your module to the new DB, or to the DB that you just deployed it to, right? So it doesn't mean revert the DB back. It means revert everything to code, from code. Yeah, see?
All those changes I made in code, I just wiped them all out.
Yeah, that's why generate makes the feature, revert puts it on. So, keep out the features, stick it up.
Apply seems a
Yeah.
more common, way more.
Dude, talk to the features guy who built it. I did it, I talked to the features guy. My dude. But then update. Okay, so you can, so in Drush, you can do a features revert, which is like DB, pick up these changes. You can do an update, which means it's like generating. So features update means please give me whatever that's in the database on disk. So features update means export it to disk. Revert means push it up to the database. Diff gives you a diff of the stuff that we saw in the video. Or
On update, Drush update, that updates the database. That updates all your modules to the
no, that's a different Drush command. This is Drush features update.
I just thought Drush up to get out of the way.
Oh, no, that's totally different. No. So there's Drush update, which runs update PHP, right? That is for Drupal to go, hey, modules, do you have anything fresh for me to put in? Kind of like update, but not this. This is totally backwards. It's kind of like revert, actually. So this is backwards. So features update is FU. Drush FU, all right? It's really fun, all right? So it means I'm going to generate my code to disk, or my settings to disk. Revert means I'm going to make them all apply to the site.
Question?
Yeah.
So when you revert, that means that you no longer need features? It's on the database, or am I wrong?
You know, there is a very methodical way that you can unpack features from your site. But yeah, it does build things on your site for you.
And is there a way to do that without Drush?
Oh yeah, you just go through the UI and just press the button. But sometimes I'll show you. You can revert by clicking revert all, really, on the UI. This is where Drush, for us, we make the features with the UI so we can pick and choose, and then we deploy and we apply them heavily with features revert. Mostly features revert all, force, yes, blah, blah, blah. You make it happen, clear the cache 3 times, kick it a couple times, does it work? Yeah. So that's sometimes when you have enough changes, you have to be that aggressive with it. But this is why you do small incremental changes over time, and then it kind of mellows things through. So, yeah, and then fdiff is cool. I do that a lot just to make sure, oh, is this change what I'm expecting going out to production? So, and there's a whole bunch of commands at this Drupal. So watch out for. Okay, so yeah, this is where you should be afraid of features. State-based variables and stronger. So like XML sitemap has a variable that says the last known generated timestamp for my sitemap is, yesterday. Do you want to put that in a feature that is going to be on disk as a persistent, oh, my last thing was updated yesterday? No. You do not put state-based variables in stronger. So there's lots of things, and you know what? You just have to discover where those things are. Here's your circular and multiple dependencies. Don't depend on 5 different features. You can actually know that the 2 features have to work very closely together, but just don't depend on it. Don't let it put the dependency there, because then things fall. Field cleanup. It's hard. Sometimes, Kristen wrote a good blog about how we have to methodically go through and delete a field from the database, coming back to the is the feature gone, but the stuff is still there question. It's good and bad, right? So if we delete it from a feature, everything's still there, but it needs to, if we're doing data diets, we need to pull that stuff out. timing dependency deployments also. So if you have a lot of stuff from one developer, a lot of stuff from the other, you just have to make sure that if they truly depend on each other, they go at the same time. Who's trying to patch a module and it's all, hey, just uninstall it, or just turn it off and turn it back on? Who's done that, right? And who thinks it sucks when like it's dependent on a feature and then you can't, because when you turn the module off, the whole feature goes away and it's really irritating? Yeah, totally. So that's why you use install profiles for doing certain things. And this is a good discussion. But things that have an ID do not really go into features. Okay. So and things are like content. So what that means is like, don't put roles in features. You don't need to. You build it once. You know, don't put terms in features because they're going to change often. Taxonomy terms. You can put a vocabulary in. It's more structure. It's very static. Also, views permissions use role IDs. So if you're going to actually do views permissions that are enhanced, it's okay if you have a very self-contained site, but if you think you're going to export it and give it to someone else, it's not going to work unless you remove those permissions. Also, things like views filters based on taxonomy numbers, right? And I had a discussion with Tim. It's like, oh yeah, that hurts. There's no good way about it yet. Also, what's also interesting is, so that's all. Anything that has an ID, you know, don't put nodes in features. It's not a great idea. Web form is very difficult to deal with just for that reason. So what's other interesting is when we talked about like Drupal 6, our version of features and features 1, a lot of the contrib people are still catching up with putting exportable features, but the big used modules are normally pretty good. But you can get like an incorrect module export, right? Like the worst patch ever thing was like field group was in exporting just one little thing, and it's like, no, I see it. No, it's not doing it. Yeah, and the features weren't working because the module didn't export correctly. Also, files don't get deleted. So you remember that big list of files like the features.strongarm and features.views? Well, if you pull something out of the feature, you have to go in and delete it. You can't just, it doesn't go away. I know, it's very interesting. And then it's like, what? Why is that still there? It needs to be going away. Also, once again, force, cache clear all, force again, cache clear all again. You know, it's a lot of times if you have lots of changes, it has to go through some, you know, processing. So it just let Drupal do its thing, and that's good. And let's talk about the one that I keep bantering here with John. So all these modules. Here, we've talked about takeaways, but here I'm going to show you, it might be too many, is that the one? All right, this is one of our current projects, and the features were made today, and I'm going to tell you why they weren't put into an install profile. It's because, who's a site builder here? Who knows how to code an install profile? Yeah, who has time to code an install profile? And I wish I did, right? So, oh, you can make your brother do it.
Sleep is overrated.
Sleep. Oh, okay. So what happened is we don't have the staff at the moment to make an install profile, so that's okay. I did put all the modules in. And this is where I'm very back and forth too. Having a module dependency in a feature means it's very hard to turn off the module ever for updates. But it was super quick to install it once and get it going and enable things. I like to have the configurations for the modules inside features, and this is where I'm still back and forth, and like, I swear this weekend there's going to be a moment where I'm just going to rah and just do it, but I don't know yet, because this is one way to do it. So if you have an install profile, you can set up all your initial modules and your initial features, and then you can override it very easily because that install profile only does it the first time, and then every time you update your install profile. But this is what it looks like in real life. And who asked somebody asked something earlier. I haven't even made a field base on this. Do you guys want me to make my field base module for my project while we watch?
Yeah.
Like, all right. This is billable now. No, I'm just kidding. So I'm going to create. I'm using Pantheon, and Pantheon has this neat thing called SFTP mode, which means that you can generate out your feature from Drupal on Pantheon's environment without downloading it to your desktop and checking it into Git and all sorts of things. And I wrote a blog on that called the SFTP mode, the silver lining to Pantheon system. And is it going to refresh? Refresh. Come on. Yay. Okay, cool. So, yay. I'm going to create a feature. And it's been sleeping. Okay, so this is my field base. Contains all field bases used across features. Okay, I'm gonna change that because I'm all like, ooh. Okay, so here I already know that we have a tag called client. It likes to have a version, and I haven't figured out exactly how and why, like what we're doing with our version IDs. So we're going to start with 1 because that's all right.
Does it know if you increment them or not?
No, it just sees it as a change on the code.
Because I've religiously incremented them, assuming that it mattered, but
you know what? It does absolutely matter. Should you guys have a very solid feature architecture, and you should increment it. That is an answer for you and your dev team. So, and I just have it. There's things I choose to rein the whip on with the development team, and that was out of all the things, just learn how to put field bases in here, and we'll be okay. Okay, cool. So this is a default Drupal install. I have not made any new fields. It is the basic install, so it has a blog. It has an article content type, and it also has a basic page. So when I see these two, here's field bases, right? Oh, and it comes with also the file. So all these field bases and all these instances, right? So I turned off comment. Okay, I'm gonna double check that. So I do not want a comment body in my field base because I thought I disabled that. But I think I want everything else in here in my field bases. And I know I'm going to disable comment, so I'm just going to leave it right here just for a moment. But I don't want all these field instances because I have these tied to article or page. So, and I want to put them here. And I'm going oh my gosh. Okay, so here's another thing. You can download the feature if you want to put it on your local machine first. That takes way too long, and I have way less patience. So I was so happy, the SFTP mode plus when they finally embedded generate feature in the base features, I was like, oh my gosh, you saved my features management time 10 minutes per feature because I had all these things I didn't have to do. It was amazing. Oh my gosh, look at it. There's some files. Sites all module features base fields. Now I have the fields base info. I have the fields base module. Why do I have a taxonomy in there? That's interesting. I probably did not pay attention, but I don't want a taxonomy in there because I keep taxonomy in different areas. But that's okay. I'll just roll with it, and I'll clean it up tonight after this. But then it has the field base, and that has all of my machine code for how to make each one of those fields. Like, is it an unlimited? Is it a type image? That type. And there you go. And let's see. We can see it in the list, base fields. And I haven't enabled anything yet, just because I'll probably deploy these to a different server and enable them there. So, and any questions? Look on your cards. Did you doodle? Do you have any questions?
If you have a permanent bed forever open,
Oh God, I have one. I have one on the site.
what do you do besides pulling your hair out?
I think we still have it just sit there and we go, oh, it's just over. It was because it was a bad feature export for an image type or something. It was a file type.
You have
Custom.
page manager from CC overwritten constantly.
This is where install diff. See what is like.
I've been doing that every time we revert. It's just staying overwritten state.
With the cache clear all and the force and the everything? Okay, yeah, that sounds like a bug. Yeah. No, seriously. Like, and that's why we got to this one, and we love to have the clean enabled, right? Default's your friend. And we just, for that one, we just had to be like, oh, screw it, just leave it. And everybody just on the dev team knows. You always have to double check if there's anything over in there, but you know, for the amount of time to fix the bug versus like us doing functional work, it just wasn't worth it. So.
Where's the one thing that seems to be missing is something like a Drush archive, so that you can back things up along the way, because you can easily get yourself in a big mess. At least I have when working with features that funny things happen, and then you can spend an awful long time trying to figure out, well, what actually happened. So it's kind of nice to just to go back. But
let's talk about, and this is a development practice for us, small incremental changes, multi-dev, recover, back it up, automated backups. Like, this is a new project, so I haven't set up the whole infrastructure, but if you don't have this like shiny big production infrastructure, then yes, do things like archive and do that. And archive frequently, use Git frequently, that type of thing. Always have two sites, right? You make your features on one and you test them on the other. Dev does, yeah, and that's a huge deal.
yeah, so the whole thing, you know, around that whole thing. I guess it's maybe implied because you're operating within the Pantheon infrastructure that gives you that if you set that up. So it's kind of a non-issue.
No, but seriously, like if when we're doing like crazy things, or if I'm doing local dev, I have two sites up. I have one that I make the feature, and I copy it over and I test it on the other one, and did it act this? Did I get all of my variables in there? Yeah. But multi-dev is easier for us just because it takes it off the people's desktop, so it helps out. And you can buy Pantheon too. Sorry, I feel like shining a little bit with that, but it's really helped our dev process. So enough that we wrote a blog on it. So let me just, and I'll show you. All right, so the blog, like, it's a real big deal. We've been doing like. So the presentation we just saw is on this blog. Deleting a Drupal field saved in features. How come this not earlier? Okay, well, yeah, it's because I did it. Wow, these are all out of order. Kristen went through and changed mine. Okay. I'm like, what? I didn't make them in this order. Pantheon's SFTP mode is a gray area with a silver lining. This is really cool about like dealing with SFTP mode if you're using Pantheon. And here's the Drupal peer review and testing with Pantheon multi-dev. It's still applicable to large-scale complex environments where you have lots of people working. in parallel. But it's really interesting. So you can learn about how you do a test dev and live deployment for that. So, yeah, and that is it. Go ahead.
You're talking about things with IDs. Do menus have IDs? I seem to have.
Yeah, we don't. I hate menus and features. Menus are content for me. So like you can make the menu like. Menus are like roles. Like I just make the menu on the site and have the. It's just not worth fighting. That's the give up one. So there's like roles, taxonomy terms, and menus. Yeah, that's all content. It's like very similar for Drupal 8. There's this mashup of like what's a content entity and what's a configuration entity, and then there's menus, and then there's like stuff like that.
So are there any solutions for that? Because I actually work with a whole bunch of designs that use a lot of these semi-content-y things. That use lots of terms, lots of menus, lots of things that. I mean, you had a slide where you talked about UUID and UUID features. Like
yeah, you can do that.
Does it work?
Well, when I went through and did it, now I tried it two or three times, but mind you, it was like when lots of stuff was happening with projects. So I've never gotten it to happily work, but I need to go into a quiet room with it, and I could probably get it to work. It's just I'd never had to force it. But like menus are stuff that our clients build, right? Or we build based on a taxonomic structure that they own, because they own things like the product catalogs and stuff, right? So these things are truly content to us. We'll give them the structure and go, hey, have fun. Don't do that, Don't make a recursive thing. But that's about it. Like play with UUID, take a moment with it, and yeah, maybe. And they've been improving it. Like blocks are also weird. So blocks always don't carry over, but if you're just working on one site and you need to deploy your code from dev to prod, you should be okay because your site's self-contained. If you don't have a lot of people working on it, it's going to be okay. Like it'll help things move along. So yeah.
Is that kind of related? Like around that same time, you mentioned if you don't have time to make an install profile. So I know it's not anything, but just why would you make an install profile? Is that something we should know how to do?
Here, I don't know if you saw what I was looking at, but this is the install profile for the Graduate School of Business for Stanford. So you can see I was going back and forth very completely on do I use install profile or not on this project, and I'm still back and forth, so I just need to take a moment in a quiet room. And actually, John should probably talk about the install profile.
No. Amy, you're far advanced from where I am right now. So
for the so the install profile is very cool, but it takes some development, and you have to make sure all the configs are right and stuff like that. But it doesn't have these weird constraints like features gives you. So.
And you know how everything's working. You wrote that code. So there's never like a string, oh, but you did something weird.
I know, but what if I like squiggle code copies theirs and go like, Adam, I hope you did this right. Yeah, that's a big thing. So, open source.
You're talking install profile, you're talking about more than you would get out of the Russian command that creates a profile?
There's a module that can create a profile. So I'm going to add a site, and we'll. Okay, so I'm going to create a site. Yay! And I'm going to start from scratch. And oh, look at what we can do, install WordPress. Does anybody know if there's a features equivalent to WordPress? Because it gives me indigestion to deal with WordPress. Okay. I looked, there's like 3 things that are like, maybe. So I'll ask one of the guys from Alley Interactive to do it.
I'm managing a WordPress site on PNPN right now. It's worked really well.
I have two, but I hate WordPress because I can't code deploy easily like changes. I'm like, oh, I can't make that pretty yet. Like, okay. So anyway, so an installation profile is you can make your own custom one, and it's just basically putting a profile. Like Drupal comes with an installation profile, standard, basic, and I think minimal or whatever. So you can make your one of those. So it'll show it in your list, and
It does work. I was thinking about making the site and then creating a profile from an operating site.
see this right here? This is an installation profile called Pantheon, which has their modules, and it says, oh, I can connect up to their blah, 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 shiny. And so this is the very simplest of an install profile. But then you can get an install profile that maybe has a lot of choices. Like if I was at Stanford and I wanted to have an install profile that let me choose, oh, I want to do something for the Graduate School of Business, or I want to do something for the medical center or whatever, and I could see like my medical profile or my law profile. So that's where something like that comes from, and it just turns on or off specific modules and configuration. And what's interesting is all those modules normally live in a profile directory. So sites all profiles modules is where those live. Yeah, it's a tricky one. You're like, why isn't they seeing my modules? Well, it's because it's in the profiles directory. Yeah, so it's fun and interesting. Anyway, does that help? So the reason why you would want to do an install profile for your own site is when you deploy new modules and everything, you could deploy and put the module code out there, and it's not going to do anything, and you just have to, when you want to time your updates, you just update your install profile, and it'll go through and turn everything on. So you can have a module, you can have like 3 features, and maybe you had a package of content that you had packaged maybe in a feed or something. You can have all that in your install profile instructions. You run up drush up db, right? And then it'll rerun your installation profile. Okay. Right. But if you're site building and you're going quick, then maybe the install profile isn't something that would be long. But like for Hook 42, we're like, oh, we are going to probably write one because we'll have our Hook 42 distribution. So I just press the button, and everybody gets because we know the core modules that everybody does. We do SEO work for a specialty, so we know that we can have the multilingual bundle go out too. And so we have strategic stuff that we have lined up, but it takes time. So yeah.
Yeah. Anything else? Are we?
Dude, that's right on the dot. 7:38. We started like that.
Okay. Was it exactly an hour or?
Yeah, no, like my present. Yeah, we're good. Sorry, I'm kind of like anal about time management. So I'm like, oh my gosh, because I talk a lot.
All right, so thank you, Amy.
Oh. Thanks, guys.
And now, I mean, since Amy launched into the presentation and that was going, I'll do the things I would normally do at the beginning.
Oh, sorry.
of the meeting, which is not that much. I feel like there's a lot of newer people here. Everyone who hasn't been to an Epic before, raise your hand.
Just me.
Just that. I just need to start drinking less.
Different combination.
Oh, all right. Well, I wanted to actually I like to go around quickly, have people just say their names, and specifically there's 3 little bits of information I'm looking to gather or looking to elicit. One is if you have jobs that you're looking to fill, that's kind of a good thing to shout out to the room. If you are looking for a job, that's another good thing to shout out in the room. And also, if there's a particular topic that you would like to see covered in a future EBDUG, if there's a particular, like features we did today, if there's something that we haven't covered recently you'd like to see, or if there's a product or a person or anything like that, feel free. My name's Luke. I am at the moment neither looking for a job nor have any that I want to fill. Although, actually, that's not true. I do have jobs I'm looking to fill. Because I am still, we'll see how long this lasts, but still trying to get a book about Drupal 8 off the ground.
I too am trying to get a book about Drupal 8 off the ground.
And I am looking for authors. I'm looking for people interested in helping to write a book. Now the book that I have is and in fact, I think next month I'm going to do a full-blown presentation on this because it's time. But basically, it's the next version of the definitive guide to Drupal 7. Which was written by 30 different people and covers this wide-ranging area. And it's kind of an interesting case because there's an upgrade path. And so I'm trying to, it's like upgrading a site, upgrade the book. So it actually doesn't necessarily require as much Drupal knowledge as ordinarily it would take to write a Drupal book, because a large part of this is downloading Drupal 8, taking the old book, and seeing how much of it still applies, and just doing a diff, being like, okay, that's still working. Oh, that's changed, and just identifying that. And it's a huge project, and I'm
Sort of
looking
like
to kind of
from Drupal 6 to Drupal 7.
Yeah, 'cause it's gonna be worse.
I rest my case.
All right. And
Backdrop.
yeah. Oh well. Actually, that is something that I should mention. Currently scheduled for next month's EBDUG is Backdrop. They are coming back. So I don't want to actually nail it because I need to check to make sure that I arranged it a little while ago. I want to make sure that next month they're still good for that. But currently, next month's EBDUG is going to be Backdrop. So that's me. Or why don't we go around just so that everyone
Actually, is anybody going to DrupalCon Austin? Oh, cool. All right. Well, let's make sure the Bay Area folks are all hanging out. We'll extend the arms. Yeah. Have some barbecue. Okay. Cool.
Steve, not looking for jobs or not hiring as far as I know. You mentioned upgrading from Drupal 6 to 7 being a bear. We have to upgrade from 6 to 8.
Why 8's not ready?
Yeah. I know.
That's the plan.
The plan we're thinking about now is to go to 8 if it's ready, hopefully.
Oh, that's good. Then you have a year and a half to wait.
Right. And,
so
and
you can start preparing.
We only have a few hundred modules and features. So
nice.
Yeah.
That's okay. Yeah, we did that. It's all right. 5 to 7, a million nodes. It's okay.
Yeah.
You can do it.
My grade's going to be built into 8, and it's going to have a.
It's got no. Have you been watching that?
No, really?
No.
That's dead.
Yeah.
Never mind.
You will only be able to migrate to 8. There is no upgrade path. Whether migrate is in 8 or not is to be determined because it's really early.
Actually, I don't know if you'd be able to pull this off, but some sort of status. We've been hearing possibly October around bad cat time as something might be at least put forward, but the status of 8 would be helpful.
Well, why don't you put that as I'll help get that homework with John Peck and the Calmuna guys, because we'll all be in Austin. So, Austin's going to have a bunch of Drupal 8 stuff. So we can report back the status of Drupal 8. So at some point.
That sounds to me like the June meeting is going to be.
Well, it'll be the after June, after the first week of June meeting. Okay.
EBDUG's at the last
Wednesday
of the month, so it will have elapsed.
All
Hi, my name is Sarah, and same here. I'm not looking for a job, and there are no job openings. And actually, we work together. So, same thing. I've been working with Drupal for a year, so still so many things are new to me. Features is kind of one of them.
Exactly.
I'm Bob Gilletta. I don't have a job to offer. I'm looking for a job or work. I'm actually helping a friend out now who's doing solar. And I've got a designer in Sweden I'm trying to work with, and I'm doing the back end. And I don't know if that is one of those things you asked if there anybody in the room, but I might be that person. So I don't design, but I'll make things work.
Louis Banus have been designing and developing somewhat in Drupal more front-end stuff, and I quickly get help when I need more heavy lifting.
My name is Jill, and I used to work with Drupal back in 2006, maybe Drupal 5. And I didn't have work with it for many years, and I just got a job as a lead developer on a major Drupal project. So I thought, well, if I'm getting back into full-time programming, this is probably where I should start going and be connected a little bit more to the community and get more information.
Okay. Are there any topics you'd like to see covered? That seems.
Not yet. Everything's sort of wide open. I'm just sort of trying to figure out the landscape and what's going on. I mean, we're not moving to Drupal 8 anytime soon, but I mean, just learning all the intricacies of the new things like features. We do have features, some of it works, some of it doesn't. I haven't had to pull my hair out about it, so it's kind of nice to get my life on that.
My name is Tom Bielmont. I'm a novice to Drupal. I've only been learning it for the last few months, and I'm trying to learn to apply to a bunch of projects that I've got in mind. And I'm just coming to these meetings as frequently as I can get to them and learning whatever I can. A lot of this is way over my head, but I pick up little bits and pieces of information that all of a sudden I'm in front of the computer and I think, oh yeah, they covered that at that. I noticed that. I get it. So,
Well, actually, the way over the head that really resonates with me because
No, I'm like that's how we started. Yeah.
No, I mean that's seriously why this is because I really I mean at other music groups I sort of experienced that watching and wondering, sort of hearing things roll over my head. And I mean when I started Drupal I'd already been building websites for 15 years, so I had experience, but there seemed like to be this big learning curve, and I couldn't understand why. And so trying to find out what where you are on that path is actually very, very useful, relevant information. I'm writing a book.
If it's any consolation, you're on a very well-worn path.
Yeah.
No, it's at times much easier than many people I've talked to have suggested it would be, and at times a hell of a lot harder. So it's just.
It's always when you least expect it. You're like, this should be
but
easy.
The greatest thing is that it actually is beautiful. That's really everything I've tried to do, I eventually have achieved, and I just keep.
Okay.
I'm Matt Pope. I just moved to the Bay Area late last year from Seattle, so I've been working for 4 years.
Oh, okay.
So I'm so fresh. And I work for a small company up in Seattle still. We have an occasional need for Drupal developers, have an ongoing need for Drupal developers, contract, so it's need of work. What else? Things I'd like to see. I mean, I'm really a project manager, more than a Drupal developer, but I enjoy developing Drupal. But it's something I've already been doing it for a all pretty.
Steve, been using Drupal since 2005, I guess it was. Drupal 4, with 2 years off Python work. I'm working at a nonprofit now, solo developer. I'm going to be bringing up a website hopefully 6 days from now. A lot of Drupal commerce and Salesforce integration. I need help, but we don't have any money, so if anybody wants to intern.
My name is Keith Brown. I've been playing with Drupal since about Drupal 5 also. I went away from it and got back into it mid-Drupal 6 about 4 years ago. Mostly at that time hiring other people to do the heavy lifting. Now I'm doing most of it myself. Just got off a project for RVparking.com and looking for a little bit of, mostly I was doing front end on that, but also code down to the iron when times are interesting. With a strong hardware background along with probably low front end HTML5 and CSS3. Just doing some stuff in Basecamp, which is a conversation unto itself. Casually available. I don't like working more than about 20% of my day, so it's sort of a heads up.
All right. My name is Patrick Story, website developer. I'm just starting to get used to Drupal. I actually delivered a website in WordPress recently, but I guess I can't accept things being easy and not having any power, so I want to get to Drupal. and have a nice
I understand
life,
you, man.
Yeah. Currently working on an app for HTML5 for an employee directory, but I've been interested in Drupal, and I came out to this meetup because features is like, oh, features, shiny, that's fun. Come here, let's see what that's all about, and things like that. I've actually been using the website build a module that I find is really useful for people who are starting out. I'm sure you might be using a different one, but I'd recommend it. It seems pretty interesting to me. And since I delivered one project, I'm almost still in the other one. I'm looking for projects and/or employment. Any way that money ends up in my pocket, I'm interested in it.
That's a dollar. Let's start there.
Yeah. I also just recently moved to the Bay Area too. Grew up in Boston, lived there, almost around there, not actually in the city for most of my life. So did it for about 6 months myself.
Cool.
I'm John. I looked at Drupal 5 for 3 days, and then I wrote a project in Symfony.
I understand.
I watched from afar while people went through the migration to Drupal 6. I laughed at them, and then I took a debugger and started stepping through Drupal 6, which I adored greatly for about 3 or 4 or 5 years. I can't remember. And last 3 years, I've been keeping an eye on the community, but off building a department in another company. So I've only in the last 3 months come back to actually doing non-hobby Drupal work. Not my idea. Someone just waved a lot of money in front of my face. and I'm having a lot of fun, and I'm looking at all the changes coming to Drupal 8, and I'm watching Drupal contrib, and I'm thinking like, oh yeah, backdrop, sounds good. And I don't have any jobs this month, but give me another 90 days because there's some stuff being done by
All right. Well, I want to throw out sort of 2 last sort of formal things where we have the room for a little while longer, so there'll be some mingling and probably some dancing, I would guess. But
it's a blue oyster cult.
Yeah, exactly. But so there's actually 2 things I wanted to say, and I forgot one of them. So the other one is that people have talked about ways to find information, and one of the things I've actually had that exists, but I've never really announced, and so no one knows about it, is I set up a mailing list for the group. That the idea behind it would be just to, have more chatter. Show of hands, would anybody be interested in being possibly on a mailing list? Is it just me, or is anybody?
Sure.
I was hoping to see enough there that now I can actually send out an invite and be like, well, some people said they wanted to possibly be on it. And so thank you for allowing me that option. And I can't remember the other things. So we'll call that a wrap for the formal part, and let the dancing begin. Thank you for coming. Thank you, Amy.
Hey, you're welcome.
For those that's not trained in dancing,
It's been a long time.
Are you related to the lady Kim Degden?
Only if it's my husband's relative.
Would you know if he has a relative named Kim?
I don't know. I'm. There's another Amy Degnan out there too, and she's like 14, and she puts like prezzies about Justin Bieber up, and so I have my Drupal prezzies, and there's Amy Degnan that's making like Justin Bieber prezzies. I'm like, oh, this is awesome. Okay, no, I don't.
No,